Being a career woman in Zambia, it has its challenges, and it also has its very strong points. Um, I think at the time, for instance, I started work, like my first professional work started in 2006 as I was still Miss Zambia. Even prior to coming back to Zambia, as I finished my first degree, I used to apply whatever job I see in the papers, regardless of whether it was related to my field of study or not. I still used to put in an application. I got so frustrated the time I returned here, having found no work for a year. I really got so frustrated because I had this illusion in my head that, oh, I have an excellent degree. It won't be hard for me to find work, definitely. I go back to my country. And yeah, I mean, once you have a degree, then for sure you're good to go. You find work. And it was an excellent degree. But shocking, huge competition in Zambia, very brilliant people in Zambia. It became quite a challenge. It's highly competitive here, and it's something you have to be willing to sacrifice your, let's say, you applying for a job that's way lower than your standard of, like, you apply for a job like you've just left high school. I think that's the stage I reached. I reached a point where I said, okay, I'm going to apply. Even if it means I'll be a secretary, I'm going to apply because I need to start gaining experience. And, a lot of the job adverts advertised would say 5 years experience, 7 years experience. And you think, well, if you're not hiring me, where will I get that experience from? And then I got to realize that actually you can create your own experience. You can, for instance, I am an excellent writer. In my media studies work, I did not concentrate on just doing journalism. I wanted to concentrate a lot on corporate communication so that I could work, in any organization or work for myself, basically. So I began doing a lot of my own writing consultancies. I would take myself to different organizations, knock and say, look, I've brought my application. I've brought you some samples of some works, writings I've done for the media. I just started writing stories for different newspapers, just as a hobby, just something I wanted to share with other, with Zambians, and not knowing that in doing that became a little experience for me, and lots of organizations became interested. You have to get them interested in you. You have to make your presence known. So, winning Miss Zambia, in a sense, equally did help me, while at the same time it equally really also closed a lot of doors for me when it came to professional work. I realized that I needed to scrap things like putting Miss Zambia in my CV. I had to get rid of it because at first I thought, look, it hasn't worked. I'm looking for work and I'm not being called for interviews. Maybe if I add this little part, I'll be called for interviews. But I realized, no, you don't have to do that. I remember attending one interview where I was interviewed by a panel of women, and the first minute I walked in that interview room, and they looked at me and said, oh, aren't you our Miss Zambia? Yeah, they were really excited that, wow, Miss Zambia. And I almost hid under the table to say, no, it's not me, because I didn't want them to judge me based on your Miss Zambia, so of course you wouldn't be able to do the kind of work we have advertised, because you would be constantly either on the runway or you would be out of the country doing your duties, So at the same time, it had its own ups and downs. But yeah, starting my first job as a public information assistant in 2006 for the World Food Program, it opened up so many doors for me, because once in that working system, it opens up opportunities when you see something even better that you feel you could apply for. You could stand a chance because you already are gaining experience. You apply for it, and that's what I did. I was highly, and still am highly ambitious. Whatever I see that I feel, look, I can do this, and I use that working opportunity to equally further myself in terms of education. I realized that just having a degree in Zambia is is not enough. It's not enough. And couple it up with the experience, couple it up with more education. A lot of younger people are coming up to say, oh, I'm going to study for my PhD, and you just sit in your chair and you're like, oh my goodness, how old am I again? Yeah, so it's being a professional in Zambia. It's interesting. It has its ups and downs, and I think after working now as a senior communications officer for UNICEF, I mean, moving on to bigger things, it's opened up a lot of doors for me. In that, CVs, people ask me to hand in my CV. Can you bring your CV? What are you doing now? But you also need to, it can be quite dangerous in that if you keep changing jobs, employers see you as somebody they cannot trust to say, look, if we hire this person, next week they'll see a better job advert than this one. Excuse me. And, they'll leave. So it's also a way of telling employers that, yeah, I mean, you need to also improve on your working conditions, your standards, and I think give employees better contracts. If I have let's say a 6-month contract, of course I'll be looking out for something better, because I don't want to keep thinking about what will happen to me after 6 months. And I think it's something that makes us who we are. We are part of Generation Y, as they call us, Generation Now, and we are more ambitious, we are more articulate, we are more outgoing. We want to explore new things. We're more comfortable with who we are, really. And unlike maybe the previous generations, where it was kind of a strict kind of setting, I would say we are more, how can I put it? We communicate even more with each other. We are free to communicate as a huge community. The technologies that have come up, it's really a changing, can I say, changing setup in the way we live. And professionally, I think I haven't been so satisfied with working for others. It is a livelihood for me. I reached a point where at some point I worked for a certain organization, and it became quite dramatic for me to get to work, in the sense that, going to work should be, your workplace is also your place of living, where you work from. You should have that kind of happiness to say, I'm going to work, I'm happy, and I look forward to this day. But I reached a point where I said, oh no, it's another working day, But yeah, you need to change that for yourself. And I began to realize that I needed to make my own work more interesting. I needed to make it work for me. I needed to once again prioritize my work. I needed to prioritize, if you're swamped with a lot of work, you need to prioritize. And I had to balance my work life as well. It wasn't easy. It's not easy, especially for young women in Zambia, having a career, having a family, having a social life. Basically, I used to have a hard time at the start of my career, because for instance, you work so hard to get a certain job. You go through the whole process, the interviewing process, written or oral. You excel in that, and then you still get to feel as if you just don't deserve to be there. And I had to counsel myself out of that, because professionally, it's how, for instance, other colleagues would make me feel. You excel. I know I'm good at a lot of things in my field, and I know, my type of limitations, I know my strengths, my weaknesses, but you'd find that, I've done exceptionally well in something, and maybe my employer would really, she would be very happy with my work, and then other fellow employees would be like, oh, how did she get there, how did she get that job? and just people who don't know you would begin to judge you because of what, you know, the type of career you have, the level you're at in your particular job. Yeah, so I had to learn equally to ignore a lot of things, because once you let that, it really would affect your work, and I you know, I didn't want to let that happen. So professionally, it's been an experience, and I'm still growing professionally. I learn from others. I am extra open-minded. I respect a lot of people's opinions, views, and I know when to make a right decision, when to make a wrong decision, for instance. And I think it's something I would repeat all over again. It's not easy. Being a young professional in Zambia, it's not easy. But like I always say, if you can manage this in Zambia, live and work in Zambia, you can live anywhere else in the world. So yeah, I look forward to even more opportunities, better opportunities. Yeah, and I'm working towards starting something of my own, where, you know, I can work for me and provide opportunities to other young people to work for me.